So you're thinking of moving to Connecticut and you want to buy a lake house. Today, we're going to cover the 8 best lake towns in all of Connecticut. But here's the catch, I'm not ranking the prettiest lakes, I'm ranking the towns where you can actually enjoy lake life and realistically buy a house. That means I'm looking at 3 things: the quality of the lake, public access like beaches or boat launches, and what it actually costs to live there. And stay until the end because my number 1 pick completely changes what most people think it costs to own a lake house here in Connecticut. Let's get right into it. Number 8 is Morris, Connecticut. Now I have to tell you something up front because it matters for everything I'm about to say. I own a house on Bantam Lake. So when I talk about Morris, I'm not reading off a screen. I'm telling you what it's like on a Tuesday morning in October when there's fog sitting on the water and nobody else is out there. Bantam is the largest natural lake in Connecticut. It comes in at 947 acres. And the word natural is doing a lot of work because the biggest lake in the state, Candlewood, is man-made. They flooded a valley back in 28 to make it. Bantam was already there. But that's not why Morris is on the list. Here's the thing about Bantam that almost nobody will tell you. Back in 1913, a brother and sister named Alan and May White bought up all the land around the north end of the lake for one reason: to stop anybody from developing it. That land became the White Memorial Foundation, and today it's roughly 4,000 acres, and it includes the entire north end of Bantam Lake and the Marsh Point Peninsula. Think about what that means. That's not a zoning rule. Somebody can vote out of a town meeting 9 years from now. That is real ownership. It has been locked up for over a century. So Bantam will never look like Candlewood. Candlewood has 65 miles of shorelines and 7 marinas. Bantam has 2 places that you could put a trailered boat in the water: the state launch on 209 and the White Memorial Campground on North Shore Road. That is it. If you're serious about a lake town in Connecticut, this is exactly the kind of thing worth going through on a call before you start touring, because it changes which towns you should even be looking at. Now let's get into the money portion of it. The median sales price in Morris last year was $680,000. That's the highest number on the entire list. Lake properties will usually start in the millions of dollars on Bantam. And I'm still putting Morris on here because I want to explain why. The price is not the whole story. The mill rate in Morris is 19.43, the lowest of any town we're going to talk about. Compare that to another town coming up later that's on the list at almost 40. You'll pay more for the house in Morris, but every single year you'll pay less. Nobody thinks about that part when they're falling in love standing on the dock. And here's the part that actually matters if you're buying right now. Morris had 3.9 months of supply last year, and homes sat for almost 40 days on market. In most of the towns I'm about to name, you are in a fight. In Morris, you are not. You have room to think. You have room to negotiate. You have room to walk away. That is genuinely rare in this state right now, and that is worth real money. There's also the Water Ski Club on Bantam that's been running continuously longer than any other water ski club in the whole country. There's a rowing club, a canoe club. They're both out of Litchfield. They run programs. There's the Morristown Beach right there. The lake averages about 14 feet deep. It gets up to about 25 feet deep at the deepest, which sounds like a knock, but it's part of why the lake feels the way it feels. Go drive up North Shore Road on a weekday in September. That is the whole pitch. Number 7 is Litchfield, Connecticut. Same lake, different town. Roughly $150,000 cheaper. And I put these two back to back on purpose because this is one of the things that separates people who know Connecticut from people who are looking at a map on their laptop Bantam Lake sits on the line between Morris and Litchfield. Same water, same white memorial land protecting the north end, same beautiful sunsets. Wait till you see the photo or the video I'm going to post. But the median sales price in Litchfield last year was $527,000 against $680,000 in Morris. Now, I want to be honest with you because I'm not honest about this. You'll figure it out in a week, and then you won't trust anything else I have to say. The price gap is not purely about the lake. Litchfield is a bigger town with more housing stock, and a lot of that stock is nowhere near the water. When you look at a town median, you're looking at every house that's sold, the lake house and the ranch out on Route 118. So the median in Litchfield being lower doesn't mean Waterfront in Litchfield is cheaper than Waterfront in Morris. But what it does mean is something real. It means there is a version of living in Bantam Lake that costs $527 and involves a 5-minute drive to the water instead of being on the water. And for a lot of people, that is a smarter buy anyways. Sandy Beach is in Litchfield. That is the public beach on the lake. It has a bathhouse, a canoe launch, picnicking. The White Memorial Trail Network runs right through the north end. There are something like 35 miles of trails on the property. Litchfield sat at 58 days on market last year and 2.7 months of supply. That is also slower. Slower is good when you are a buyer. Slower means the seller has started to see the market shift a little bit, and the sellers are starting to get realistic. If you're trying to figure out which of these towns actually fits your budget and your commute, that's exactly what I do on a free Zoom relocation planning call. Call, text, or book a time down below, and we will map it out together. The other benefit of buying in Litchfield is downtown Litchfield. It's the spot that everybody photographs. The green is in the middle. There's white buildings all around it. The whole thing is beautiful. It's genuinely one of the best downtowns in the state, and you're 8 minutes away to the largest natural lake. The mill rate here is an even 20, which is the second lowest number today, and you need to think about that. The only town that beats it was Morris. So you've got two towns on Bantam Lake sitting at the two lowest tax rates in the whole state, and that's not an accident. Land that can't be developed doesn't demand services. No new subdivisions means no new schools. So no new sewer lines, no new anything. White Memorial land is quietly holding down the tax bill for these two towns at the same time. That's the kind of thing you only see if you've owned in an area for a while, and it's not the kind of thing that's ever going to show up in the listing description. Number 6, New Fairfield. Now we're going west. We're going to hop on 84 and we're heading out, and this is going to be a big one. Candlewood Lake at 5,420 acres, the largest lake in Connecticut, and it's not even close. 65 miles of shore, 85 to 90 feet deep in the deepest part over by the dam. 5 towns touch it, and New Fairfield is the one I'd point most buyers to first. And here's why. New Fairfield has a town beach on Candlewood, and it also has Squan's Pond State Park sitting right there, which is a separate body of water with its own beach and its own boat launch. So you get the big lake and you get the quiet lake in the same town for the same tax bill. Candlewood is completely a different animal from Bantam. It was built. Connecticut Light and Power flooded 5,420 acres of farmland back in 1928. There was an entire village called Jerusalem that sits at the bottom, got wiped off the map, and the foundations and the old roadbeds are still there, which is a big reason the bass fishing on the lake is as good as it is. It gets ranked nationally for smallmouth bass, but you will also feel the difference the second you are on it. There are 7 marinas. There is real boat traffic. If you want a fast lake where you can open it up and run for miles, that is Candlewood. And that is a legitimate thing to want. The median in New Fairfield last year was $550,000, up 3.8%, and it had a mill rate of 26.33. 30 days on market, and 2.1 months supply. Number 5 on our list, East Haddam. This is the one nobody sees coming. Most people pick a lake town in Connecticut and they pick a lake first and then figure out the town. East Haddam flips that because East Haddam has 3 lakes. In East Haddam, you're going to find Bashan Lake, Lake Hayward, and the Moodus Reservoir. 3 separate bodies of water, 1 town, 1 tax bill. That's not a technicality. That matters because every lake in this state has a personality and a schedule. One of them is going to be crowded in July on a Saturday. The other one might be dead quiet. And if you live in a town with 3, you just go to whichever one matches your mood that morning. You are not stuck. The median in East Haddam last year was $451,000, and that number moved 14.2% in a single year, which is one of the biggest jumps of any town on the list. So that tells you something. People are finding out about it. The mill rate is 28.06, 31 days on market, 2.3 months supply of inventory, and East Haddam is not some empty stretch of woods with water in it. You have the Goodspeed Opera House right on the Connecticut River, and it's one of the most serious theaters in all of New England. You also have Gillette Castle. The Devil's Hop Yard is also there. The trade-off, and let's be honest, there is always a trade-off, is that you are east. If your job is in Stamford, this is not the town for you. If your job is in Hartford, or if you're remote, East Haddam is one of the better deals in Connecticut right now, and it's not going to stay that way for long. I'll tell you a mistake I made early on. I had buyers years ago who wanted lake life and a short commute, and I spent about 2 months trying to give them both. I kept showing them towns that half worked. What I should have said in week 1 is pick one. Pick the water or pick the drive. Because in this state, you will rarely get both under $500,000. They eventually picked the water and they were happy. I just cost them 2 months trying to figure that out. Pick one and I will save you a season. And I'll say it again because we're getting close now. The town at number 1 changes the math on everything I've said so far. So keep the numbers you've heard in your head. Because when I get there, you're going to want something to compare it against. Number 4 is New Milford. New Milford is the only town in Connecticut that touches both the largest lake in the state and the second largest lake in the state. Candlewood Lake on one side and Lake Lil Noah on the other. Lil Noah is an impoundment on the Housatonic, and it is a completely different experience than Candlewood. It's long, it's narrow, it winds. 6 towns border it. It feels more like a river that got a little wide, which is exactly what it is. So in New Milford, you can have a Saturday where you're out on Candlewood with the whole entire world, and a Sunday where you're on Little Noah and you might see 4 boats. The median in New Milford last year was $482,500, up 6%, 35 days on market, 2.5 months of supply, with a mill rate of 30.96. And that's the one soft spot here. It's on the high side for this part of the state, and you need to know that going in. But New Milford gives you something most of these 3 towns don't, which is a real town. There's an actual downtown with a green. There's a hospital. There's a grocery store you don't have to drive 20 minutes to get to. Some of these lake towns are beautiful, and there are 4,000 people in line at the gas station. New Milford has 28,000 people. That's a different life. And I'll tell you who I'd tell to go here. If you've got one person in the house who wants the lake and one who's quietly worried about being isolated, New Milford is the compromise that actually works. Number 3, Coventry. Now we're getting into the part of the list where the numbers are going to start to do something. Coventry Lake, which the maps call Wangambog, is about 374 acres in the middle of a town. And I mean in the middle. Patriot Park sits on the water and connects straight into the village of Millbrook Greenway, and you can walk from the beach to dinner. In Connecticut on a lake, that's pretty unusual. There are two town swim areas, the Patriot Park and Lissac Beach. There's also a state boat launch. Patriots Park has a band shell, a playground, picnic pavilions, ice skating in the winter, and the median sales price in Coventry last year was $388,000. Sit with that for a second. Under $400,000 in a town built around a 374-acre lake with two public beaches, a state launch, a mill rate of 23.76, which is on the lower end of the list for lake towns. But here's the catch, and it's a real catch. Coventry was at 1.2 months of supply and only 15 days on market. It is the fastest town by a wide margin, which means the value is not a secret anymore. If you find something you like in Coventry, you're not going to have time to go home and think about it. You need to make a decision that night. I've watched buyers lose 3 houses in a row like this because they wanted to go home and sleep on it. And I say this quite a bit. You can sleep on it, but you may never get to sleep in it. Get your financing sorted way before you go look at it, not after, so you can be ready to act when you find the one. And I know that some of you are thinking, because Coventry is Tolland County and it's east. Yes, Storrs is right there. Yukon is right there. Go Huskies. And Hartford's about a 30-minute drive. It is a reallocation. It's just not the location most people picture when they think of Connecticut. The other thing about Coventry that I want you to hear, there is a lake association scene on the water, and there are association beaches beyond the two town ones. That sounds like a small detail. It is not. In a lot of Connecticut lake towns, the association is the whole ball game. And whether the house you're looking at comes with the rights or it doesn't come with the rights can swing what the property is worth by a serious amount. 2 houses on the same street. One has lake rights, one doesn't. Same square footage, not the same house. We need to ask that question on every single showing. Everyone. Because I've watched people close in on what they thought was a lake house and then find out they don't have the rights to go put a kayak in it. You need to ask that question up front, and that's one thing we will help you do. Number 2 on my list is East Hampton. East Hampton has Lake Pototopog at 512 acres right in the middle of East Hampton, and this is a full water sport lake. Skiing, tubing, jet skiing, sailing, all of it. Sears Park is in the town beach, and there's a launch there. The lake has 2 islands in the middle of it, which is one of those details that doesn't matter until you're out there, and then it's the only thing you're looking at. The median sales price in East Hampton last year was $440,000, and that jumped 19.2% in 1 year. That is the single biggest year move of any town on my list. 16 days on market. People have found this town too. Now, I told you earlier, there's a town on the list that sits at almost a 40 mill rate. This is it. East Hampton at 39.71, and I'm not going to soften that. It's more than double Morris, almost double Litchfield, and the same assessed value you are paying twice as much on property tax every single year to live in East Hampton that you would Litchfield or Morris. Over 10 years, that gap is not small, and it is the single biggest thing I want you to understand before you buy there. But I still put East Hampton at number 2, and here's why. Because you're buying a 512-acre lake with a town beach in a town where the median sales price is $440,000. That combination barely exists in the state, and you're paying for it on the back end instead of the front end. Some people would rather do that. Just do it with your eyes wide open so you know what you're getting into. All I'm telling you to do is run the actual numbers before you fall in love with the house, not the mortgage. The mortgage plus the tax, that's the number that decides whether you're going to be happy there in 4 years. So number one, the difference maker, before I give it to you, if you want help figuring out whether any of this fits your life, are you going to be kayaking or jet skiing anytime soon? Call me, text me, book a Zoom meet with me. Number one is Winchester. Winstead, Highland Lake, 444 acres, 63 feet deep at its deepest, which makes it dramatically deeper than Bantam. It puts it in the same conversation as Candlewood. There are 3 separate bays, so it fishes in boats like 3 different lakes, depending on where you put it in. 2 town beaches, a state boat launch, a working marina where you can actually go and rent a pontoon for the afternoon or keep a slip for the season. And the median sales price in Winchester last year, $280,000. $280,000 in a town built around a 440-acre lake. That is less than half that of Morris, and it's $160,000 under New Fairfield. You could buy in Winchester and put $100,000 into an awesome Bennington pontoon boat, or you could put it into the house, and you would still be under what the median buyer paid in East Haddam. Now, some of you have heard me say that number before because I put Winstead at the top of my underrated Litchfield County towns video for a completely different reason. And I'm putting it at number one again here, and I'm not going to pretend that is a coincidence. When the same town keeps coming out on top of 2 totally different lists, that's not me being lazy. That's the market telling you something most people aren't listening to yet. And here's what you need to know honestly. Winchester's median moved down 3.4% last year. While almost everything else on the list in the state moved up, Winstead, a former mill town, is still working through what that means. The downtown has real bones and real vacancies. You'll see both on the same block. But Highland Lake is not working through anything. It's spring-fed. The water's some of the clearest in the state, and it's been there the whole time. And the mill rate at 29.17, which is right near the middle of the pack. So the tax picture doesn't undo the price. If you've been telling yourself for years that a lake house in Connecticut is out of reach, go drive Highland Lake on a Saturday morning and then look at what's for sale. When you do, make sure you call me. And look, if you want to go deeper on Winstead and the rest of the part of the state, I broke down 5 underrated towns in Litchfield County. Click right here and I'll meet you over there.